Hi, I'm Anne-Christine Diaz, Creativity Editor at AdAge. Welcome to this very special edition of AdAge's Remotely, in which we're kicking off our celebration of Asian American Pacific Islander Heritage Month. In the US, May has been designated as AAPI Heritage Month, in which we honor the many contributions of AAPI individuals to our country. In recent years, however, it's been a bittersweet celebration in light of increasing violence against those of Asian descent, spurred largely by the racist sentiment during the pandemic. Moreover, AAPI individuals, like other underrepresented groups, still struggle to achieve parity with their white peers in various professions, including in the world of advertising and marketing. Enter Asians in Advertising. Founded by Bernice Chao, head of integrated creative at Zambezi, and Jessalin Lam, VP Member Development and Diversity at IAB, the organization has been working to boost the careers of AAPI talents in the industry by creating a network of support and offering various resources designed to help elevate them into higher leadership positions. Today, Chao and AIA board member Susie Bao, Group Account Director at Quigley Simpson, joined AdAge remotely to discuss the hurdles AAPI ad and marketing talents face, strategies to help overcome them, as well as the organization's upcoming summit, Breaking Barriers, geared toward helping AAPI execs take control of their careers. Before we start, I just wanted to remind our audience, please tell us who you are, where you're watching from, and put questions in the comments, and hopefully we'll be able to give you a shout out and get to some of those questions. Welcome, guys. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having us here today.
So since this is AAPI Heritage Month, I wanted to actually start by hearing a little bit about your own backgrounds, as AAPI talents, where are your parents from, where were you born? I guess I'll kick it off with myself. My parents are from the Philippines, Filipino immigrants. I was born in Los Angeles. And then, that's my story. What about you guys? Where were you born? Where are your parents from?
So my dad's from China and my mom is from Taiwan. My dad grew up in Taiwan, so culturally more Taiwanese. And I was born in the Bay Area, so Silicon Valley. And then now I'm in Los Angeles, Silicon Beach. And I am actually Chinese, Taiwanese, and a little bit of Filipino as well.
Oh, cool. What about you, Susie?
I was born in Vietnam to a Vietnamese dad and a Chinese mom, but I was raised Chinese. So I came here in the U.S. when I was 3 years old, and I speak a little bit of Cantonese, and I regret not staying with it. I tell everyone I speak really great dim sum, so come join me for lunch, and I'll take care of you.
I can't wait. And you're based in LA as well, right?
I am based in LA.
Okay, so we're all neighbors. Well, great. Again, great to have you here. And I'm glad we get to dig into Asians in advertising. So give us a history of your organization. What exactly is it? Why did you start it? And how does it differ from great organizations like 3AF, for example?
Absolutely. I can get started about kind of the origins of it. So 5 years ago, I was working at David and Goliath out in Los Angeles, and it was the first time I worked with a handful of Asians. And I got really excited. I wanted to create a community. I saw so many great communities pop up within advertising for, the African American community, the Hispanic community. And I was like, where is the Asian one? And so I started seeing, I think, with the rise of AAPI hate, a little bit more within the industry of trying to showcase those that are AAPI descent. And that really kind of encouraged me to be like, where else is there any more of this? And so I was looking for different organizations, different communities, and I just kind of saw that there was not that many out there, or it wasn't really talking to the community aspect of it. My own career as a creative, I worked with, very few diversity, and especially females too, as well, right? And so I saw myself, primarily, I would say the department was maybe 10% minorities, and then half of that would be females. And I've never worked for a woman of color. And I just saw so much power in this representation that I really want to create a community. And so I started hosting meetings and having people at my agency be involved and kind of seeing how that went. And after about our second or third meeting, like the excitement for it waned. I think something about the Asian culture is that we don't like to make space for ourselves. And so there was this idea of, are we being too exclusive? Do we really need this? In the end, it got shelved. And so, kind of the rise of the pandemic, I was like, let's bring this up. I met Jessalin Lam virtually through an Ascend webinar. And I was just so impressed by her passion for the AAPI community. She was on the board of the Ad Club of Newark. She's on the board of 3EF. She's been on the board of Ad Color, like pretty much everything. And she's like, I just really want to make a change. And so, me not knowing her, but just not knowing how involved she was, I asked her to be my co founder. We created the website on a Saturday. We launched it on a Sunday with just one networking event, hoping maybe 20 people would care. And about 600 people signed up. And so we knew right away that we had something that the community really needed. And since then, we've just kind of been growing really steadily. We have about 2,800 people in our network now, and we actually get a lot of people joining from other countries as well.
Wow, that's interesting. That's amazing. Hopefully, we can get to that a little later, because the cross cultural differences must be like super intriguing. But also a shout out to Jessalyn, who couldn't be here because she just had a baby, and she was a former AdAge college um, blogger, I think. So yeah, it's awesome that to see her grow in that fashion. Um, but so both of you, when you were coming up in your own careers, um, how do you think you would have benefited from a group like Asians in Advertising? Bernice, you chatted a little bit about that, but what about you, Susie? What are your thoughts about mentorship as you were
Yeah.
coming up?
Gosh, I really wish I had AIA when I was starting out my career. It felt most of the time I was navigating the waters solo. I did find a few people that helped me along the way, but none were Asian women. And rarely was there anyone, a woman of color, that helped me along the way. So, the help I get or the advice I get would be speak up more in meetings. And that's generally the case for most Asians. We tend not to speak up. But no one told me how. No one gave me the platform. No one teed me up and no one set me up for success to speak up in meetings. It wasn't until I figured it out later in my career how to do that on my own, that I was able to speak up and be louder and bring my voice to the table. But oftentimes when I started doing that, I would get, oh, whoa, why are you being so defensive? Or you know you're complaining too much. So with Asian in advertising, the support and then the mentorship we're going to give is, okay, how do you speak up? Have someone in a meeting say, oh yeah, Susie, you had a great idea when we were talking the other day. What was that again? So you need that help, that no one else can give, and no one can understand your cultural barrier. And that's what AIA will do.
Well, that's really interesting. So to hear about how to navigate those waters, first stepping your toe into speaking up. Can you think of what's for those the younger generation out there who are experiencing this? What's one tip that you can give them in terms of first putting your voice out there if you're not inclined to do that?
I would say what you have to say doesn't have to be perfect. I think culturally we're always taught that we do not need to say anything unless it's really well thought out. And I think in advertising, it's all about, joining into the conversation, brainstorming, just kind of saying things off the cusp. And so there's times in my junior year, like junior places in my career, where I'm in a big board meeting, high visibility, and I just didn't feel like I had a fully baked idea to contribute. And so I just stayed really quiet. And if you do that in a room, they just think you don't have any ideas. Whereas instead, culturally, you're taught about saving face, and all these things of not embarrassing yourself. So you're just totally nervous about jumping into the kind of the fray of it. So what Susie mentioned about like being like, hey, Susie had something really great to say, or building off Susie's idea, these are great ways to like hand it over to your team.
Yeah, I definitely concur with what Bernice said. It's so important. We're in advertising, we're not in finance, we're not attorneys, we're not talking about the law. We're here about ideas. And there's, if you have a glimmer of an idea, speak up. If it's a bad idea, speak up. And, hopefully someone else in the room will say, you've got something there. Let's build on it. What about this? Someone else will make that an even better idea. And that's what advertising is all about. It's about ideas, and everyone has them. So don't worry about, oh my gosh, they're not going to like what I have to say, or it's going to sound stupid. It's not a good idea. You're going to inspire someone else's idea. And that's how it works.
That's great advice too for leaders in the room who are looking to nurture, talents who, don't feel like they have a voice. You know, if you are a leader, you should call those people out. Ask, be encouraging and ask for their thoughts, even though they aren't perfect, even though they are unformulated yet. So yeah, that's really helpful. So, um, you know, you talk about saving face, Bernice. Like, what are the other common themes and issues that have come up amongst the AIA community that you think are, issues that you're trying to help them with, or what are the main themes that you're trying to bring out there with the community?
Well,
Tell us a
two
little bit
that
more.
Yeah, I mean, two that we hear about, a lot about is like changing faces. This idea of when you show up at work, you kind of have to hide a little bit of your identity, so you're trying to blend in with your coworkers who are maybe brought up in America with just an American culture. This actually happens to me a lot where I go into a room and they're talking about maybe movies from the 80s. And kind of, even though I'm American born here, I kind of crossed two cultures. So I didn't get a full dive into like music culture, pop culture. So there's a lot of times I'm in the room and that banter that happens in between conversations or pre-meetings, I kind of have to nod along like I understand. Like, oh, that football reference or where this band is from. And I feel like I don't really quite fit in. I had a friend, she's so great. She was telling me how she would write down the conversations in the room. And it was like idea, movie quote, idea, movie quote, movie quote. And she was like, what I did, I went and studied movie quotes because she wasn't brought up that way. And that kind of leads into my second thing, which is imposter syndrome. Because you don't feel like you fit in the room, you feel like you don't belong in that room. So there's this idea of like, oh, I feel uncomfortable. Maybe I'm not made to be here. And so one of the things that Asians in advertising does is really try to demystify these feelings by saying other C-suite Asians feel the exact same way. They feel like they have to put on a different face and kind of just like figure out and navigate the waters with this cultural difference. And that's totally normal. And the hope is, with Asians in advertising, we help as many people ascend to that C-suite position so they don't have to feel as uncomfortable, right? We really want to open the doors for diverse voices by creating, like, we know how it feels to be different.
Susie, do you have any thoughts on that? Other themes that you think are important to touch on?
Yeah, the self-promoting is we're so terrible at self-promotion because we're taught to be humble. We're taught not to brag, don't be in the spotlight, don't draw attention to yourselves. Please, everyone, that is the biggest cultural barrier you'll need to overcome. It's still uncomfortable and it feels unnatural for me to self-promote. But that's how you rise up. No one else is going to help you self-promote. I used to think that I'm going to work hard and they're going to notice me. They're not. They'll give you more work. That's what they're going to do. So, do a little self-promotion. We call it humble brag. You don't have to say, look at me, look at me, look at all the stuff I've done, but just say, it was so grateful. It's so grateful to be here on AdAge live with you and Bernice. That's amazing. But this is going all over my social too. You know, be grateful, but also, talk about it. Share your accomplishments because, everyone has accomplishments, big or small. But and share it with others, promote each other.
Yeah. In terms of promoting, the conversation has kind of gone toward this place where we feel uncomfortable being who we are. But, I guess like in recently, just talking among my own colleagues, there's it's super cool to be, Asian American, because there's so much of in the culture that's being embraced right now. There's been a lot of just really dark news, but there's so much amazing stuff too, like in culture. So can you talk a little bit, from your own personal experiences or from the experiences of your members, where it was just, pretty amazing to be AAPI, like where it, helped you in the room or on a job, because I'd love to highlight some of those moments as well. Can you think of, that kind of came out of nowhere, but
No, I definitely agree with, both parts of what you said. First there is been basically been a racial reckoning, right? It's like I think so many of us, we kind of are just born in a world where we're like, our parents told us to assimilate really hard. And so we never really
yeah,
like embraced the Asian identity and brought it to the workplace. We're just like, oh, this is who I am. But we haven't really like confronted that part of ourselves. And I think recently, like we talked to a lot of our members and they're like, I really never thought about the Asian identity as much as I have lately, you know? And so, we talked about earlier about kind of those cultural barriers, and that's one thing that we do talk about Asians in advertising, kind of that there's that American saying of the squeaky wheel gets the grease. In the
yeah,
Chinese, we say the loudest duck gets shot. And so that just shows you how fundamentally we show up in the workplace so much different, because we think we're going to talk up and what, get laid off, get yelled at, get punished. Like, so that just shows you, what we talked about earlier about speaking up in meetings is so important. So I think kind of coming to terms with that Asian side of you has helped people process those things. Like, what are those things that I need to unlearn or kind of work on based on just how I was being brought up? Secondly, I think with all these emergence of like employee resource groups, there have been a lot more script checking. There was times where they would write an Asian person into the script, and it was like, "See Asian women at boba shop," or "Here, going to the Asian market, let's put a rice maker in there." And I think now with kind of how we're coming into this, advertising's looking at that a little differently and being like, okay, we have to be racially sensitive. Is this really speaking to the Asian American culture? Are we being diverse in our casting, whether that's on screen or on the team? And so those are kind of the things where I feel like really we've been making changes.
awesome. Susie, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, AAPI month has starting to get some recognition now. And I was helping a client come up with an image that represents an article written about it. And the images presented were of Chinese New Year or Holy or dancing and parades. And I stepped in and said, "This is all wrong. It's there's no holiday this month. It's not about a festival. It's about educating yourself on all of the 20 plus countries that fall under Asian American Pacific Islander. And it's about generations of stories and the struggle, but also highlighting, spotlighting the historical facts of why, you mentioned the beginning, why do we celebrate it in May? And so the image changed to something more appropriate. So it's great to just you have to do it in not a preachy way, but these clients appreciate, well, thanks for kind of setting us straight. They were gonna literally put some festival parade image, like, nope, we don't do a parade this month.
Well, I'm glad you were there to catch that.
Yeah.
So we have some shout outs to the audience. We have Francesca from the UK, Dave from Michigan, Dennis from New York, Keith, Steve, Anna, Susanna, and Arturo. Hey guys, thank you so much for joining us. I'm Anne Christine Diaz, creativity editor at AdAge, and I'm here with Bernice Chao and Susie Bao of Asians in Advertising, helping us to kick off AAPI Heritage Month, but also talking about a lot of important things in the community. So my next question. So there are numerous underrepresented groups in the industry. So, and there's so many, everyone has their concerns. So how do you balance being allies to others while also getting your voices heard? Is that a concern for you guys at Asians in Advertising?
No, I mean, it was in my last agency, it was an ally, a Black woman, my boss, and I shout out Donna Bellamy.
Mhm.
she she was probably the epitome of an ally. She encouraged me, and I was going through a rough time that year, and with the pandemic, with all the hate crimes against Asians. On top of that, personally, I had my parents had recently passed away. So I was feeling a little bit lost amongst my own community. And she encouraged me to, participate in an ERG. And, surprisingly enough, Asian advertising had just started. And I was one of the 600 people that joined that first networking event. And after that, I was blown away and I wanted to find out how I can get involved. I reached out to Bernice and Jessalin and said, hey, I want to just get involved. And they reached back and says, how about being on our board? And I just grabbed that. And I've been very actively involved ever since. But it was because of that ally that knew that I was going through something unique and I needed the support of a specific community, my community. And she was right. But it's also important to intersect with all of our allies because we do have common ground. We all have our own struggles and we all have our own unique struggles. But that doesn't mean we can't help each other, give each other our space where we need to. We have specific cultural barriers to overcome as Asians, and all the other ERG groups do as well. But there's common grounds. We have struggle. We can help each other, but we can also make the space where we can grow and thrive, not just survive, but really thrive and work with our community, but work through our barriers as well.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because Asians aren't a monolithic group. There are many cultures within the AAPI community. South Asian, Southeast Asian, East Asian, jungle. If you watch Ali Wong, jungle Asian and fancy Asian. um, so how do you guys negotiate that? How do you make sure that the communities within the AAPI community all get heard within your organization?
Well, we even try the board members are also, we try and have representation even amongst our board of all the various groups that fall into Asians. And we also spotlight talent from all across the Asian community. So from South Asian, Southeast Asian, East Asian, we want to make sure every story is heard. I recently met a great strategist at Kashmir. She's Pacific Islander, and we're going to tap into her for Pacific Islander stories. So we want to make sure every voice is heard, and that's what this is about. We want to elevate our voices, and there's so many of them. Everyone has so many stories that I can't wait to tell everyone about them.
We have just a few minutes left, so I want to make sure that we get to breaking barriers. Can you please tell us about what that is and what's in store? What can we expect from the event?
So, Breaking Barriers is our first annual summit. This is a 2-day event this Thursday and Friday. We're so excited about this. We have such an amazing group of speakers. Cindy Gallup is kicking off keynote day one. She is such a hero of mine. So it's been so wonderful to kind of connect with her and have her kind of represent this day one, which is really about working on yourself. So, this is the day where we talk about networking and negotiating your salaries. Day two, we have Stop AAPI Hate as our second day keynote. And then we are talking about how to improve your ERGs and what does the advertising industry look going forward. But there's an incredible lineup. Please visit our website, asiansinadvertising.com. You can see the 40 plus incredible speakers across the industry. We try to be as representative as possible. We have people who are podcasters, founders, book writers, so many incredible people. We're so happy to have this. And, if you can join us, it's amazing. We also are giving free tickets to people with .edu. Students are covered for this event by our amazing sponsors. So please check it out.
Can you tell us about some of the talks that are the community is most excited about? Like, I know in the past you discussed branding, and you guys brought it up, like other things that we should make sure to look out for.
So everything in our schedule is from things we've heard. Like
Uh,
this is just from we had about 16 events last year or first year off the bat, and these are the most common questions that we've had. Like personal branding, what does that mean? When Susie talked about like humble bragging, what does that mean? How do I do it? And for all our events, we try to make sure it ladders to three pillars of Asians in advertising, and that's community. Second one is spotlighting talent. So that's, who we're featuring, making sure there's people's voices that you haven't heard from previously that aren't overexposed. And third is really closing that skill gap. So instead of just being like, yeah, talk up more, do it. It's like, okay, here are ways you can talk up more. Here are ways you can shout at other people. We want you to be taking notes the entire time and making sure you can apply it tomorrow. We don't want to just give you like high pie in the sky information. We want to give you tangible working advice.
cool. Susie, is there one talk that you're particularly excited about? Like if you were just starting out, which one would you make sure to check into?
Oh gosh, we we crafted it so day one is about working on yourself and day two is about working with others. So it depends on what you're going through right now. I'm personally moderating the conversation on difficult conversations, and that's one where I think a lot of Asians have a tough time with. We shut down. We're we don't like confrontation, but there's so many topics that will be useful tools and skills that you'll learn. We had a bunch of pre speaker calls, and I'm just so excited on so many levels. We've got day one networking, and day two, sponsored by Yahoo. Day two networking sponsored by Publicis. So we've got some big agency names, big brands involved. They want to support and they want to hire from this community, which is amazing. So, we just are looking forward to every speaker, every sponsor, every topic is going to be so relevant. I don't think I can pick one.
Yeah. Also,
And
on our day two, we have a conversation with the 3EF, which is an amazing organization out there. And we're partnering together for the next gen mentorship program. And this is something we've been constantly asked for from our community. So we're really excited to partner with them. There's going to be about 50 open slots that we're pairing. So we're looking for mentors and mentees. So I definitely want to, shout that out and say signups are now available.
cool. And is it asiansinadvertising.com where we
Yes.
can get this
Yes,
information?
it's under
Okay.
the resources section. You can already sign up. We're going to be pairing for a 6 month, mentorship program. I am actually really still good friends with my mentee, and she's actually speaking on our panel as well. So her name is Josephine, and I just say mentoring is so important. That representation, that nurture, that I understand where you're coming from, that struggle. Even what's okay, what's not okay. I think everyone out there. I would say be a mentor or mentee. Definitely.
Awesome. So, for some parting words before we say goodbye, you know, one important piece of advice from each of you to, a mentee out there or the world of mentees. Bernice, you go first.
Um, so many things to say. You're enough. It's not just you, right? I think those are things where it's like we as Asians, we internalize a lot of times, feedback, and we don't share with other people like our struggles. And so, because we're taught to not do that, so definitely reach out there. There's a community out there that wants to talk to you, want to help you. Don't feel nervous about reaching out to people, and with that, I say feel free to reach out to me. You can find me on LinkedIn. I'm definitely down to take a virtual coffee and have a talk with you.
Awesome. And Susie.
Well, I'll leave everyone this advice, and many who know me have I've said this before, but everyone needs a mentor or mentors, a coach, and a sponsor. So find your mentor. That person, gives you advice, someone you can talk to, help you out through some problems. A coach is, think of it as a personal trainer, someone you pay to train yourself on how to be better at whatever it is your career, that you're doing. And a sponsor is someone that's a very senior executive in your agency or in the industry that's going to open doors for you, um, provide connections. I mean, this is how you succeed. you need those three types of people, and that's just not one person that can do all three. So don't be afraid to get more than one mentor, coach, or sponsor. You need a team.
Thank you so much to both of you, and best of luck at the event. I'm excited to attend. Hopefully, I will be able to. But again, that's asiansinadvertising.com. The Breaking Barriers event is coming up Thursday and Friday. And thank you again. And thank you to all our viewers out there. And stay tuned. Make sure to check into the next AdAge remotely and adage.com. Thanks all.